Thank the good Lord above for Bengali Kamara and the Kansas defense. KU gets the win, 27-20 over UCF. Let's talk about it. This is the Paid Podcast, a live edition of the show immediately following Kansas's 27-20 victory over UCF in Orlando. Take that, Bounce House. Stupid name, stupid stadium. Take that. KU wins 27-20. And if you're joining us live, I need you to do four things. I know I'm asking a lot for people late at night. There's four things I need you to do. Number one, I need you to thank the Lord for Bengali Kamara. Number two, I need you to hit the subscribe button. If you're not already subscribed, please do so here on YouTube. Number three, I need you to hit the like button on this video. Like the video. And number four, I want you to share a comment and share your thoughts. I've already got a lot of people hopping in the comment section here. Really appreciate you if you have already done so. Kevin, by the way, shout out to Kevin. Kevin's a hero. Kevin's a hero.
There you go.
How about that?
By the way, if Kansas can get stops a yard away from the end zone for 4 plays, you guys can do the 4 things that Nick asked.
That's true. Yeah. Bengali, he was up and down. He was obviously elite in the third quarter, and then he ended up, he did whiff on some tackles. But we'll get to that. Lee Jones says Rock Chalk. Great win. Another thing they say about winning these types of games, Kevin, is, and the best part of winning ugly is winning. And yes, It got ugly at the end there. It was a little hairy, obviously, in the last 2 to 3 minutes or so. But in the end, it turns out Kansas shuts out UCF in the second half, which that's kind of a crazy statement to say in and of itself. But, Kansas gets the win. They're 4-2 at the halfway point of the season, and they remain with just the one loss in conference play. It was a whirlwind of a game. It did not start great. It started pretty badly, and then it picked up a little bit, and then Kansas was dominant in the third quarter. And then the fourth quarter was just an absolute roller coaster of emotions, capped off with Kansas getting a 4th down stop to secure the victory. Kevin, just 30,000-foot view here real quick before we dive into the nitty-gritty of this game. Takeaways from KU's win. Yeah,
Kansas came out really flat. Like, I don't think there's another way to put it than UCF ran the ball right down Kansas's throat. And I think while we can sit here and say, hey, getting Bengali Kamara helped, it wasn't just missing Bengali Kamara that had UCF going up and down the field, leading 14-0. And Kansas kind of, I thought the drive to make it 14-7 was almost kind of a must-have drive, as crazy as it sounds, to stem the momentum a little bit. They were able to go into halftime just down 6, had a couple drives where they didn't wind up getting touchdowns in the third quarter. But Nick, Texas Tech, UCF, you know how many yards UCF had in the third quarter?
I believe they had -1. Is that correct?
-1 yards in the third quarter on 12 plays. And so the Kansas defense pitched a shutout in the second half. The offense kind of did just enough in the second half. And look, I've seen some comments to this in the chat, but a win is a win. And however it happens, whether it's 14, whether it's 17, whether you get out by the skin of your teeth because UCF scores a touchdown and you stop them on a 2-point conversion, a win is a win, and a road win is a road win. And so for them to go down there and get that victory, the other stuff can kind of take a backseat a little bit, I think.
I mean, look around the world of college football today, especially. There was some absolutely insane games, outcomes, major upsets. Like, I want to underscore what you said at the end there. Like, it doesn't matter. You won the game. Like, get the hell out of there. Get back on the plane to Lawrence. You won the game.
Did UCLA even have a win before beating Penn State today?
No. UCLA, they were on. Kevin, they hadn't even led. They had not even led in a game in their first 4 games. They didn't even have a lead until they played Penn State, and they won.
Alabama upset Vanderbilt. I mean, crazy things happen.
Okay. Yeah, no, you're right about that. But yeah, it was a crazy day in college football. It was a crazy day in the Big 12. Cincinnati suddenly looks like maybe not a bad loss for Kansas because of what they did against Iowa State, especially in the first half. So K-State ends up losing on a last-second field goal attempt against Baylor. So, yeah, crazy day. And so, again, to me, biggest takeaway, you won the game, period. Full stop. Nothing else matters. Now, yes, I did see a comment, talking about how there were a lot of the same issues that cropped up, and that is true.
Sure.
But, I think you've talked about this before, Kevin. These are the types of games that, as a coaching staff, that are kind of the best case, because you got the win, you can celebrate the win, but you can also turn on the tape on tomorrow and the rest of this week and say, we can be a lot better in X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Yeah. You get to celebrate in the locker room, tell everybody, hey, you got a big Big 12 road win. And then the second you get them into tape on tomorrow or Monday, you can say, hey, guys, you maybe could have lost this game because you did A, B, and C wrong. But then the coaches, by the end of the week, will have the players feeling like they can tackle anybody, they can take on anything. And, if you just did A, B, and C, you would have won this game by 40 points. And they feel like world beaters. And so never sleep on the ability of coaches to, one, enjoy a win, even if it's not the best win out there, but two, be able to get in there and find ways to fix things and tweak things and whatever else. And so it was as weird as it sounds, Nick, because we talked about it this week. And for those of you guys who watch, this was a little bit of a must-win game, if you could say that, for a game in the first half of the season. And so finding a way to win it was just huge.
Yeah, to your point, one of my favorite ESPN 30 for 30s is the Catholics versus Convicts one.
Yeah.
And there's a section of that documentary where Lou Holtz, it's Lou Holtz who's talking, and he's basically describing, like, on Monday, you guys don't even deserve to be a D1 football team. On Tuesday, like, okay, maybe you're like fine. Wednesday, you could maybe win a game. Thursday, you're pretty good. Friday, you're national champion. Saturday, so yeah, there's that buildup. So, but yeah, truly a topsy-turvy game. As you said, KU came out pretty flat to start. The defense was looking like it was sort of a copy and paste of the Cincinnati game. They were having a terrible time really stopping UCF. UCF averaged 10 yards per carry in the first half. Miles Montgomery was doing literally anything he wanted. He was running through. I mean, there were several plays where it wasn't even the third or fourth guy that was getting him. It was like the fifth or sixth guy. He was running through so many tackles. So
it felt like he was almost accidentally hitting the hurdle button, because he hurdled like 4 different guys at different points. You're like, is he trying to do this every time? Or it's almost like you're playing college football and you meant to hit spin or you meant to hit something else and you accidentally hit the hurdle button. But no, he was killing KU in that first half.
Yeah, and it became pretty clear, I think, as the half went on, and I think it was really exemplified by the third quarter, that Taven Jackson was just not very accurate as a passer. Like he was not throwing some balls. And someone mentioned in the comments, the conditions were not great either. It seemed like it was either a downpour or, difficult conditions regardless. But yeah, it was pretty clear early on. I felt that the passing game for UCF was a bit neutered. And that was kind of what we expected going in. Ja'Cory Brown ends up being ruled out for the game entirely. Because both he and Taven Jackson had suffered the same injury. And so, yeah, early on, it was kind of scary for Kansas, because the defense was not stepping up. They were really struggling to tackle. Tackling was a major issue. And the offense was a little bit slow to get going early in the game as well.
Yeah, and then slow late, right? And some of that had to do with the fact that you're pinned down where they were pinned multiple times. But, Nick, 2 of the best – I would say 3 of the best drives that Kansas has had all year. The touchdown drive to take the lead late against UCF, the drive where they had to have a response, down 14-0, where it was like a 9-play or so, like 75-yard drive. And they had like an 11 or 12-play 75-yard drive a little bit later in the half. And so for all the people who were saying, hey, Kansas can't sustain drives, all they get are these explosive sort of one-play drives, Kansas actually put together some really good drives in tough situations in this one. And UCF's defense is pretty good, actually. UCF heading into the K-State game last week, UCF hadn't allowed a first-half touchdown all season. And they allowed 2, I think, to K-State, both in the second quarter. So UCF, as of right now, still has not allowed a first quarter touchdown this season. So that's a pretty solid defense that Kansas was able to put together and string together some long drives on. And so that was pretty nice to see.
Yeah, D Jones with the comment here. Winning is awesome. Proud of those boys and loved seeing Zeke get some run. Zeke had, I think, 2 separate carries in this game. He got on the field twice. Saw him early in the game, and then he came in later on as well. There was also, they had that package with him and Jalen on the field at the same time, which maybe is something to keep an eye on. I think down the line, probably would expect some sort of trickery to be coming off of that package potentially as well. But yeah, Kansas really got things kickstarted in the second quarter and started to bounce back. And they make it 17-14, right? Towards the end of the first half. And there's like 2 minutes left. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, here we go again with UCF having a chance to maybe go down and score a touchdown. And it did get a little hairy. They got down the field and I was thinking, oh my gosh, and then they end up having to settle for the field goal, which at the time felt like a win because of the circumstances. But obviously you still would have liked to have seen the Kansas defense step up a little bit there towards the end of the first half. But yeah, I mean, that stretch, not allowing UCF basically to score a touchdown was significant, but that stretch was certainly still had me on pins and needles there towards the end of the first half.
Yeah, for sure. We had a question about Laquan Robinson too, by Casey there. Laquan Robinson was a scratch. He was out on the injury report, has been out on the injury report. So that was part of it. But yeah, anytime it gets down to what you consider sort of that middle 4 or whatever, the last couple minutes of the first half, first couple minutes of the second half, you want to see how Kansas is going to respond, because that's been a little bit of a weak spot for them. And you did give up a field goal, but man, Kansas came out of the locker room just fully charged up defensively, and UCF got nothing. We did have a question about, the third quarter defensive analysis. It wasn't single-handed. They were setting the edge better. I thought the defensive tackles did a really nice job of winning the middle too. But one of the things that Bengali Kamara does is, and he's a penetrator, and that sounds, kind of gross maybe, but also like he does a good job of slipping blocks and getting vertical to where running backs have to make horizontal decisions. And I think when you look at what UCF was doing, especially in that third quarter, there were multiple plays in there where Kamara got into the backfield, sort of just shot the gap, and the running back, instead of getting downhill, instead of getting to the hole he wanted, he's having to move side to side, and guys were able to sort of finish off those plays as well. So Kamara was definitely a big part of it. And I think when you look at this defense, there's no doubt that his talent is unique, and it's something that he brings that they also don't have, from other guys.
Bengali, the penetrator Kamara. That's what you get here on the podcast after dark, after late.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, actually, Kevin, if you watch the very first play of the second half, what you just described is exactly what happened. But Bengali Kamara basically shoots the gap. He doesn't actually make the tackle, but Montgomery is forced to bounce outside. And the other part, and I think I tweeted this actually during the game, you talked about Kamara there. The other part was Kansas also was rallying to the ball a lot better in the second half.
I agree.
I think it's pretty obvious that, DK McDonald or Lance Leipold or whoever got to those guys and said, hey, it needs to be 2, 3, 4 guys rallying to the football to get those tackles. And so that was the other thing that I really noticed from in the third quarter, especially, was Kansas was really firing off and rallying to the ball and taking that away. And I also do think part of it also was Kansas kind of, I mean, it took them until halftime to recognize this, but I think they also recognized, like, if we just sell it to stop the run, UCF doesn't really have much else they can go to, because Taven Jackson was obviously, I think, a bit limited and missed on some throws and ends up getting hurt in the second half, even beyond that. And so I think that was part of it too. It was, hey, UCF is going to line up and run the ball until we stop it. So let's sell out for the run. Let's rally to the football. Yep. And then obviously Bengali Kamara, as well as kind of sort of that X factor player that can shoot a gap and create some chaos in the backfield as well, I think was also the big contributing factor in that third quarter.
Yeah, I also think conditions too, right? I mean, not that Taven Jackson's a terrific thrower, but also, it was a little bit of a wet ball, all the different things that go along with that. But yeah, I mean, I thought going in, Nick, and Dave asked, Bad Hombre asks, why didn't we know that going into the game, though? It's funny because I was actually at some friends' houses before coming over here, and when I was asked about the game, I thought Kansas had a pretty good chance to win. I said the reason why is I don't think that UCF can exploit Kansas's defense in the way that Cincinnati did, and shouldn't be able to stretch the field in a similar way, shouldn't be able to really make hay in the passing game. And so I thought Kansas would be able to potentially shut down the running game and have some success, not, minus 1 yard, on 12 plays in a quarter, but I did think that was a chance that they were going to have there.
Kevin, not to derail the conversation here, but we got an important question in the chat. How far into winter until the fireplace gets lit up?
Well, I actually have to get it repaired. So it's not looking great right now because I don't know if you guys have had to have a fireplace repaired, but it's an expensive thing. We've got something like a little further up the chimney, but we'll maybe figure something out, even if it's adding like a fake fire or something behind me in a really key situation. But no, also to Dave's question, I saw a lot of people drilling die for not picking that pass off. I'm pretty sure his hammy popped right here, as he was about to catch it. So on replay, yeah, it was one of those where I think he was getting killed a little bit online for not picking off the pass. And I was like, man, I don't know that I'd catch anything if my hammy popped right as I was trying to catch a pass. But yeah, I think the hammy had a lot to do with the reason that he didn't pick that ball off.
Joseph also asks, is the analysis the rest of the season, can the opponent pass? And if yes, KU lost? I wouldn't go that far, but, to be fair, the KU secondary has experienced quite a bit of turmoil, I think, certainly over the past couple of games with some injuries, with some guys being shifted around. Like Jalen Todd ended up playing a lot in the slot tonight, which was something that was also a bit different. Normally that would be a Mason Ellis. To be honest with you, Kevin, did Saeed Gibbs, was he even out there? I know he wasn't.
Saeed Gibbs was hurt, I think.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So he wasn't really out there either. Those are basically your top two sort of slot corners. And then obviously you lose Devin Dye and Taylor Davis got nicked up as well in the second half. So I'm willing to cut the secondary a little bit of slack over the past couple of games, and just that there's been a lot of turmoil. There's been different injuries. And so obviously that is alarming for the Texas Tech game looming on the horizon, but you like to think that, okay, after that with the bye week, you can set yourself up to get healthier before you play K-State. But that was kind of my, I guess, takeaway. And Al brings up another injury with Highshaw being out as well. LeSean Williams, somebody mentioned, we've gone almost 18 minutes and we haven't even talked about LeSean Williams, who had 3 rushing touchdowns tonight, which, by the way, I believe he only had 3 rushing touchdowns in his entire career at Iowa prior to coming to KU. He gets 3 rushing touchdowns tonight alone, and did a nice job. But absolutely, you can just kind of tell, I think, a little bit off the play calling. And Jim Zebrowski, kind of danced around this, I think, earlier in the week when we had a chance to see him for the press conference, and that without Highshaw, there's just not as much. It doesn't feel like there's as much confidence in the running back room to be able to generate. And that's not a knock against LeSean Williams or Harry Stewart, those guys. It just I don't know. It just feels like there's not as much confidence in their ability.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think you see, especially, not as many quote unquote traditional carries as you would see if you had a full complement of running backs. And the interesting thing about the safeties that you brought up, Nick, we spent the preseason kind of talking about the fact that the safeties all had different talents, right? So you could kind of mix and match those guys. And, if you need this, you can have Taylor Davis do it. If you need this, Mason Ellis is more that guy. Well, the issue is you start to lose those guys, and there's somebody who doesn't fill that spot, and they've lost a bunch of those guys. And so I think that's been a little bit of the issue there. Is it's not just that you're losing guys, but like Taylor Davis is their best deep field safety guy. He is their best center field guy. And so when he goes out, you have somebody who still has to play, quote unquote, that center field role at times, but maybe doesn't do it as well as Taylor Davis does. And Lyric Rawls, I think, is a tremendous box guy. And I think that you lose a little bit when you ask him to come back and play 12 yards off the ball and all of those different things. And so there's a little bit of that trading part there. There's a lot of Austin Alexander love in here. And I just have to give that a shout out because, some of you guys know, some of you don't, but I fought really hard to get Austin Alexander his 4th star when I was at 24/7. Did not happen because I think they wanted to see more quote unquote verified athleticism, whether it was a track time or whatever else. Tad, you're killing me. But but he wound up being just shy of a 4-star guy. But a big part of the reason I thought that he deserved that is he's a very fluid guy for as tall as he is. But the other thing is just he's got that mentality that he can have a bad play and he can come back on the next play like it didn't happen. And obviously for cornerbacks, that's such a huge thing.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to highlight. I mean, he's the guy that ends up with the face mask penalty late in the game that would have that would have been a 4th down situation. It would have been like a 4th and 5. He has the face mask penalty, but then Kevin, they go right back with a throw to him in the end zone and he breaks it up on a really nice play. So, yeah. And the other thing to keep in mind also is Austin Alexander and Jalen Todd, those guys are the same age. Those guys are the same year. So you're talking about maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, essentially, I mean, obviously Kobe Bryant and Melo Dotson were very high-level players and both ended up being all Big 12 first-team caliber players. And I'm not saying that I expect Jalen Todd and Austin Alexander to both be that, but you are kind of setting yourself up for something similar in that, hey, we're going to have hopefully 2 really strong corners on both sides of the field going forward.
Get on the table, Nick. Say they're going to both be all Big 12. Take a stand.
You know what? Damn it, I will. I will take a stand. Jalen Todd and Austin Alexander. That's your next Kobe Bryant and
there you go. There you go.
Melo Dotson. There you go. And on that note, we do need to take a quick break. So we'll be right back with more KU football talk coming up next.
Chiefs Kingdom, I have got a question for you. What is your favorite touchdown? Well, for me, I can confidently say that my favorite touchdown, it's the next one, because with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, every touchdown could bring you closer to cashing in. From the first touchdown score to anytime touchdown props or the thrill of live in-game betting, every snap is loaded with opportunity. From spreads to money lines, same-game parlays, regular parlays, you want it, DraftKings has got it. Here's the best part. Bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets instantly. I use DraftKings Sportsbook, and you should too. Your team hitting pay dirt pays out to you. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code KCSN. That's code KCSN to turn $5 into $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, fees may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Minimum minus 500 odds required. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
This is the Paid Podcast, a live edition of the show tonight on a Saturday night. Hey, special shout out to Jesse Dixon. This is a cool post-game show. Thanks for the work, you guys. No, thank you, Jesse, for joining us, because truthfully, we wouldn't be here without you guys. We wouldn't be here without all of you that have joined us tonight. And Kevin, I think I need to remind the viewers, there's 4 things I need you to do. 4 things. 4 things I need you to do right now. Number 1, thank the good Lord above for Bengali Kamara. Number 2, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Hit the subscribe button. Number 3, like the show. And number 4, share a comment. Join in on the conversation with all these fantastic other KU fans. You do those 4 things, and I promise you, you'll have a good life. You'll have a good life. And also, if you're subscribed, you'll be notified when we go live after all future KU games as well. So really appreciate all of you joining us tonight. Jack asked for any update on Joseph Sipp. I didn't see him out there much tonight. He still has that right wrist forearm injury. He's got that sort of if you've seen him, he has just a giant club. But I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, I guess. Didn't really see him much tonight. That's sort of, I guess, the biggest update I can give you on that one. Joseph also asked, at the risk of returning to a tired subject, is there any concern that our 2 wins in our last 10 one-score games have required opponents to fumble inside their 5-yard line? Yeah, I think we should probably spend some time speaking about that because Kansas got the win, and obviously we talked about that to start the show. But yes, there was still some obviously really tight moments late in the game. It got sketchy there towards the end with Kansas being pinned back deep a couple of times and maybe getting a little bit too conservative. And then some timeouts called and then not called by Lance Leipold on defense that were kind of puzzling as well. So Kevin, when you look at kind of how the game ended, sort of in those last 2 minutes, I mean, they've got the third string quarterback Cam Fancher, and he ends up. And by the way, I will say this: Cam Fancher, the third string for UCF, he actually did make a couple really nice plays. There was the one play on the very last drive where it looked like KU had him dead to rights. He ends up scrambling out and completes a short pass, but he stepped in with a lot of poise, I thought. But yeah, towards the end there, it was a little bit got very nerve-wracking, I'm sure, for those of you joining us tonight.
Yeah, when Kansas went conservative on its last possession, I felt like that girl from the TV shows, like, thanks, I hate it. Like I'm one of those people, Nick, that I know a lot of us on here are Chiefs fans. When the Chiefs get 4th and 1 or 4th and 2, so often they're putting the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hands, right? Because when it's a one-off situation or if it's 3rd and 2, they're saying, hey, we don't want to punt the ball here without giving our best player a chance to pick up this play. And Jalen Daniels is one of the most efficient passers in the country. Like I think he came in with the top 5 passer rating. And yes, technically they put the ball in his hands on a run. Nick, I would have liked to see them trust him there to say, hey, go out, hit on a 6-yard pass, win this game for us. Hit on an 8-yard pass, win this game for us. We trust that you're going to be able to make this play. And hey, if the stuff isn't open, I think he's actually more effective right now as a scrambler than maybe he even is in designed quarterback run stuff. And so I would have liked to see them give him a little bit more of a drop back thing where he had a chance to throw for it. Love the Bowden Gruen shout out because, the cloak of invisibility, as Nick calls it, he wasn't as wide open today, Nick, but that didn't stop him from making some huge plays. But I wanted them to let Jalen Daniels pass on 2nd down, much less on 3rd down. But I would have liked to see them say, Jalen, you're our guy. Go win the football game.
So Bowden Gruen, Kevin, he traded the cloak of invisibility for the cloak of speed. Were you watching that big man hustle down the field?
Yeah,
that was awesome.
He went. You're only allowed to have like one item at a time in RPGs or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. So he traded it. He got the cloak of speed, and that dude, he was hustling down the field on that long pass play. Yeah. I think that was back in the first half. But yeah, Bowden Gruen is easily my favorite player on this team just because it's fun to watch, and I think it's fun now. It's fun. But back to what you're saying about Jalen Daniels, I 100% agree, right? Like, he's your best player. He's your best player. And what do you do when you have a player like that? You put the ball in his hands to let him go win the game, right? I think you would have made the same argument, in the past couple seasons with Devin Neal, right? Where you say, Devin Neal's your most dynamic player. Get him the ball, right? Get him the ball one or the other.
Yeah.
And in this case, I think it's the same thing. The same discussion with Jalen Daniels is he's your best player, and let him go out and prove it. Let him go out and try to win the game for you there. Obviously the defense had gotten several stops, but in that scenario, it's one play to win the game, basically, with, again, best player. So I do agree on that. They went a little bit too conservative. I also wanted to mention they were pinned back earlier fourth quarter, and it was a 2nd and 9, and they tried to pass, and then it was 3rd and 9 at the 2, and they just ran the ball. I saw some discussion about that. I would have flip-flopped that, right? Like, on 2nd and 9 at your own 2, try to run a little bit to create some space for yourself, and then maybe you're able to open it up on 3rd down. Because if you throw on 2nd down, which is what Kansas did, and now it's 3rd and 9 from your own 2, at that point your concern becomes, do we even have enough room for a possible punt if we don't convert? Right? Yeah. Versus flip-flopping that, you have a little bit more of an opportunity. So that was kind of my takeaway there. Then you also, late in the game, there's 2.5 minutes left, and UCF's got the ball inside the 5. And this was when KU got the goal line stand, but they don't call the timeout, and it goes to the 2-minute warning. Kansas has 3 timeouts. Then Lance Leipold calls a timeout on 3rd and goal, which I thought was smart to stop the clock in case they did score. And then on 4th and goal, he calls another timeout, which I didn't agree with because at that point, let the clock run and put the pressure back on UCF to convert the 4th down. They end up not converting. And then all of a sudden, there's still 1:40 left when KU gets the ball at their own 1. And then that's when KU goes ultra conservative with what you were just talking about with running the ball 3 times. And again, I agree. Like the run play with Jalen Daniels, I liked it with the ball in his hand. But boy, I would have loved some sort of pass option off of that for him. And I think what I really want to point out that you mentioned, Kevin, that I 100% agree is Jalen is much better, I think, as a scrambler. I think he's even more better when he's able to use that creativity. Now, I will say this. Gary did point this out. UCF was spying Jalen Daniels every play. Every play had multiple spies on him for pretty much the entire game. It was very clear that UCF was committed to eliminating him as a scrambler. So I will point that out. I thought that was a big part of UCF's game plan, I thought, really at the very beginning, was to try to scheme up to not allow Jalen Daniels to scramble. And that's kind of reflected in what he did on the ground. He had the box score has him officially with 10 carries for 25 yards. So UCF was obviously cognizant of that and trying to limit that. But again, if you just give him a pass option on that play, then you go and you just win the game. And there's no extra stress of that last drive with UCF going down to possibly try to win it. And by the way, somebody had commented also that would UCF have gone for 2 if they score? I think so. I think
they would have. Knowing one, Scott Frost, and 2, UCF. As much as everybody here wants to get on KU in the red zone, UCF is awful in the red zone. And so I think if you're Scott Frost, you would have said, "Hey, I like being aggressive," but I think he also probably would have said, if we get into a contest where it's their red zone possession, our red zone possession, their red zone possession, he would not have felt good about that sort of situation. And so I think he would have gone for the win.
Yeah, I agree. You're on your 3rd string quarterback. Like going to overtime, I don't think would have been the best thing for UCF. So if I was UCF, I would have gone for it. And I think they would have gone for it. Joseph Loomis also said, I was also confused with the second down play where KU tried to draw. Yeah, that was a bit weird. So there's about 1:44 left in the game. It's 2nd and 8. And Kansas had a timeout, and they basically just tried to get UCF to jump off sides. Like, at first I was like, what are they doing? And then it's like, okay, I guess maybe I kind of get it considering the circumstances, but I don't know. Maybe that's a scenario where I would just rather have the timeout.
I didn't like it at all because I get that you're getting ready to be on defense, but at the same time, there are reasons to call timeout on defense, right? Like your defense gets out there and you notice like, hey, we don't have this guy covered, or hey, they've got us out leveraged over here. And so, you have the ability to call the timeout, sort of reset everything. And they didn't have that because they called that timeout in that situation.
Which, by the way, that actually happened in the first half. There was that play where it was a 3rd down play, and it was really unfortunate timing. UCF actually looked like they false started or had some sort of play on a false start. But Kansas evidently only had 10 players on the field. So you got the timeout, in that scenario. So that happened in the first half.
Yeah, for sure. So I would have rather held on to that timeout in that situation versus calling it right there, because even I get you're getting ready to be on defense. And so you're like, well, we probably don't have as much of a need for it. But if your defense gets tired, you can give them a break. If your defense is in a bad position, you can call timeout. There are different things you can do with that timeout. And so I didn't like giving that time out away. Excuse me, easy for me to say. But I wanted to say too, on a game where Jalen didn't have like out of this world numbers, Jalen played really well. And the reason why I say that is he didn't put the ball at risk, right? There wasn't a fumble that he had. The announcers kind of got after him for throwing the ball away when he got hit, and they're like, oh, that was pretty risky. But it looked like he pretty much saw that he had open area to ground that ball, get it down basically out there. And so I think one of the things, Jalen's been so explosive this year. The one knock we've had on him is, hey, he can take the odd risk. And it's, to be quite frank, Nick, it's usually been more with the fumbling than the interceptions this year. But Jalen did a great job, especially in those conditions against a defense that's actually pretty good, of not putting the ball at risk at all. If Kansas has one turnover in this game, they might have lost. UCF did have one turnover when their quarterback coughed up the ball and KU scored a touchdown off of it. That was it. That was the score right there. And so taking care of the ball was pretty huge for Jalen Daniels in this one.
Yeah, I mean, that ended up being the difference maker in the game, right? Yeah. The sack fumble caused by Jalen Dye that results in KU recovering, and then they score on the next play with LeSean Williams. That ends up being the difference in the game, truthfully, then and there, And obviously, you mentioned you look back at the Cincinnati game, Jalen ends up fumbling. Now Kansas recovered from that, but still, it was a significant play at the time. So you're absolutely right about that with taking care of the football. Bad Hombre has the comment here. I need Lance to show some cojones. I talked about this, I think, either on the postgame show in Cincinnati or I think in our pregame show earlier this week, Kevin. But my concern with how some of these one-score games have gone for KU is that I was worried that Lance Leipold would look at the results and actually swing the opposite direction and be more conservative. And that kind of played out tonight, truthfully, where he really did go more conservative. And so that's kind of my worry is I'm worried that he looks at the results of some of these one-score games where Kansas has been on the wrong side of it. And I think from the outside perspective, fans would say, hey, be more aggressive or do something different. I think Lance may look at some of these results and say, well, actually, maybe we need to be more conservative. And that's exactly what happened tonight against UCF. But it ended up working out in this scenario. And it's just one of those things where it's obviously if you win and it works, you look smart. And if you lose, then you look dumb. And that's kind of what's been unfolding with Kansas with Lance Leipold. So, I thought that was I guess basically the point there is I wouldn't expect Lance Leipold to be more aggressive in one-score games. I hate to kind of burst your bubble on that if that's where you're at, but I wouldn't expect it really. And then I want to give a shout out to myself here, Kevin. I'm patting myself on the back.
Oh, there it is.
In our pregame show, who did I talk about as a player to watch? That's right, Cam Pickett. You know who had a great game tonight? Cam Pickett. You know who's really smart? Me. I'm just kidding. You're actually smarter than I am, Kevin. But Jackson came in with the comment. I didn't realize this in the moment, but Cam Pickett was a top receiver today. Yeah, Cam Pickett, I continue to believe is going to end up, if he stays healthy over the course of the season, you're going to be talking about Cam Pickett as sort of wide receiver 1A and Emmanuel Henderson wide receiver 1B. And what I mean by that is Emmanuel Henderson obviously is very dynamic and explosive and takes the top off of a defense. But I think Cam Pickett is the more reliable, consistent down-to-down receiver and can do more in different areas, right? And that's not a knock against Emmanuel Henderson at all. Because if you remember, we're talking about a guy in Emmanuel Henderson who is not playing his natural position. He was a running back converted to receiver. So it's not a knock against him at all. But I firmly believe that Cam Pickett going forward, assuming he stays healthy, is going to be sort of that 1A receiver that you want to go to on a down-to-down basis. Or if you desperately need a third down conversion in a situation, he maybe is the guy you look to for those scenarios versus Emmanuel Henderson, who is obviously your sort of explosive guy, downfield guy, get the ball in his hands and let him use his speed. I believe Cam Pickett will be the more consistent down-to-down receiver going forward for KU.
And Cam Pickett's a junior too. Don't forget that too, where, you have, I agree with you. I think Cam Pickett, if he had been healthy this whole season, that he would probably be leading KU in receiving yards right now. I really believe that. And I think that when you look at him potentially next year with a new quarterback, et cetera, and the different things he can do that you mentioned, where they can throw it to him short, they can get him the ball in different areas, I think you're going to see Cam Pickett be one of their most important players, maybe even in the program next year.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think there's no question that he is going to step up. And there's people in the comments talking about that catch. It was a great catch on that seam route down the middle that he made as well. Really impressive stuff there also. Yeah. All right, we do need to take one more final quick break before we start to wrap up the show and share some of our final thoughts. But before the break, this does also give me a chance to remind you that if you are a Chiefs fan, you could be on the field at the 50-yard line inside GEHA Field for the official coin toss at a Chiefs home game this season. Visit Chiefs.com/GEHA now. Enter to win a chance to be on the field for a once-in-a-lifetime view of the pregame coin toss. Plus, you can score other exclusive prizes. Enter for a chance to win at Chiefs.com/GEHA. GEHA is a proud partner of the Kansas City Chiefs. More KU football talk is coming up next.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
Success in real estate takes more than vision. It takes the right financial partner. When someone takes something rundown and turns it into something great, that's called a comeback story, like Brain Group. They take distressed properties here in KC, completely rework them, and then turn them into valuable real estate. But that kind of work needs the right bank behind it. Enter Emprise Bank. They're not about cookie-cutter loans. They saw Brain Group's vision, backed them, and now they're making big moves in Kansas City real estate. Talk about your partner in possible. Emprise doesn't do one-size-fits-all financing. They invest in potential and back growth. Visit emprisebank.com/KC to learn more. Emprise Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
This is the Paid Podcast, a live edition of the show tonight on a Saturday night. Thank you so much to those of you that have joined us tonight. Really appreciate all of you dropping in with some comments. Be sure to continue to share some comments as well. And once again, if you have not already, please subscribe on our YouTube channel at Kansas Jayhawks KC so that you can join us for every live show. That's right. Every game, the rest of the season for KU football, we will be live after the game, break it all down. Win, lose, tie. I guess you don't have ties in college football, but whatever the outcome is, we'll be talking about it live on our YouTube channel at Kansas Jayhawks KC. So thank you so much if you have already subscribed. And if you haven't, you're already here. It takes one click. Just click the button and go ahead and do it. Out of the break here, Brendan says, I have some one-score game PTSD. I was stressing way too hard, even though it felt like we were in control the entire second half. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with that. You know, you talked about it earlier in the show, Kevin. -1 yard of offense for UCF in the third quarter. And yet still, it didn't quite feel like the offense was able to fully capitalize, right? I mean, they had a couple chances in the third and even into the fourth quarter where if you just put together another drive and go down and score a touchdown, make it a 2-possession game, or even just kick a field goal, make it a 2-possession game, you could really put the game away. But instead, they kind of let UCF hang around. And yeah, I'm right there with you. My blood pressure was up. I mean, I was fully expecting something to happen to let UCF score there late in the game. But shout out to the Kansas defense for bowing up and making the stop there.
Yeah, I was breathing into a paper bag. I mean, same as everybody else. But you know, it was funny. When they started having that goal line stand, the defensive line was so overpowering on that stand that when they went into fourth down, I'm not saying I was basically like, oh, they got this thing, but I was also like, man, they may get this stop here because UCF is not moving them at all. And if you go back and watch the replay, Trey Lathan, I mean, I'm not sure he could have had more aura on that play because he was standing in the hole for what seemed like, 3 years, rain coming down on him, lightning behind him, and he's just standing there with his arms out, like waiting for him to run into him. And so it was pretty awesome to see. Blake Harold is playing unbelievable football right now. And Blake Harold was my pick for the defensive side of the ball for players to watch for this.
Seems like maybe you're kind of smart too, Kevin. Huh?
I don't know. What wasn't my offensive guy Bowden?
I believe it was. Well, I don't. Well,
he
did you just pick Jalen Daniels? Did you pick Jalen Daniels?
No, I started to say it's Jalen Daniels, but I got to pick somebody else. And I think I picked Bowden. So that'll work. That'll work. But no, Blake Harold is playing unbelievable, and we'll tell you guys some of the stuff that you would hear from coaches when we talk to them and whatever else. They believed a year ago, hey, this guy may have some all Big 12 type potential. And that's not a knock on Tommy Dunn or DJ Withers or the other guys that they have in the program, but you could just tell that they felt there was something special about Blake Harold and that there was a thought that he would even wind up pushing, Tommy Dunn and DJ Withers for playing time and potentially even a starting spot. He winds up getting a little bit banged up. Tommy Dunn and DJ Withers did their part to solidify those spots, but you're starting to see the Blake Harold emerge that they kind of thought he could be because he does have more pass rush juice than some of the other guys do. He does give you some more big play ability from a defensive tackle spot. And Nick, I mean, they've even been bumping him out to the edge and having him rush the passer from out there, moving him around and having him do different things. And so Blake Harold is a guy that he's pretty darn good right now, but he has a very bright future in this program.
So with tonight's win, Kevin, Kansas is 4-2, officially at the halfway point of the season. 4-2, and a 1-1 in conference play. It's hard to do. 2-1 in conference play. It's hard to do.
West Virginia still counts.
Look. We're getting later in the evening. I already am not great at math. You never know what I'm going to say after 11 p.m. So just bear with me. 2-1 in conference play now, but 4-2 overall. How would you assess this first half of the season for Kansas? Where would you think where do you think you would say that they're at right now as we sort of start to turn the page into the back half?
You kind of give them a little bit of an as expected, and I realize that sounds really unfair for a team that's 4-2. But I also think that you had a chance to beat Missouri. You were in position against Missouri, even with how fluky that game was. And when I say fluky, everybody's like, oh, you're saying, KU is better. It was fluky the way it played out, where Missouri wound up having like 46 snaps to KU's 4 over like a 50-snap period. And you were right there against Cincinnati and had a chance to win. And so that part is disappointing. But also, Nick, Missouri and Cincinnati are 9-1 between them. I mean, Cincinnati has the only loss. And so you were right there, and you had chances in both of them. So you're not necessarily in a spot where it's 4-2. I'm so excited about 4-2 because you had those opportunities to be 5-1, to potentially even be 6-0 if everything went right. But at the same time, I don't think you're upset with 4-2 with the losses that you have at this point. And the way that you were able to pull out some of those wins. Fresno State's been a pretty good football team too.
Yeah. Well, and again, I would just say look around the rest of the Big 12. I mean, several other Big 12 teams had some disappointing losses to start the season and have started to bounce back. But the point being, like, what is happening with Kansas in these Big 12 games when we talk about the Cincinnati game and then tonight against UCF, you're seeing that across the conference. Like, a lot of teams are in that same discussion where, hey, if you flip a couple plays and, maybe you're only, 4-2 or whatever, but if you flip a couple plays, it could be the other way. That's just kind of the nature of this conference, right? That's just kind of the nature of how things unfold. And it's such a roller coaster from week to week that the emotions can be so high and so low from week to week. I think you look at 4-2 and yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about it after the Missouri game and said, hey, maybe the expectation is you're 5-1. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that you were playing Cincinnati at home. So it felt like, okay, hold serve at home and win that game. But even still, people in the chat mentioning it, Cincinnati ends up going out and beating Iowa State today. So now maybe it's not as significant, that loss. I mean, it still is annoying. But the point being, like, I think Bad Hombre kind of sums it up well. It's Texas Tech versus who, right? It's Texas Tech versus who. Kansas, unfortunately, is going to have to play Texas Tech next week, and so that's obviously going to be a tough game in Lubbock. But again, I think you kind of get back to this. You kind of circle back to, okay, you expect to probably be in more tight games down the stretch of the season, and if you just flip a coin one way or the other, you could be talking about being 8-4 on the year and possibly looking at a shot at the Big 12 title, or 9-3 versus 7-5, right? And we've seen that sort of unfold in a microcosm over these last two games for Kansas, with the game against Cincinnati and the game tonight against UCF, where, I mean, it would not take that much imagination to talk yourself into flipping these results where KU beats Cincinnati and they lose to UCF, right? So that's just kind of where it is. And I think it's going to be more of the same going forward. And so some of the issues that cropped up for Kansas tonight, the tackling that they shored up, right, with getting McGully Kamara back, the offense maybe kind of spinning its wheels a little bit in the second half late when they could have maybe put the game away, getting too conservative. Those are probably going to be situations that Kansas is going to be facing again down the stretch of this season. And it's just going to be a matter of, essentially flipping the coin. Are you going to be able to win more of those games? And I'm hoping that a win like this tonight is going to inspire a little bit more confidence and maybe set Kansas up to where in those one-score games down the stretch of the season, they're going to be in a better position to potentially win more versus last season, right? I mean, I think it was Joseph Loomis in the comments who said, hey, 4-2 is a lot better than 1-5. Yeah, 1-5 was sort of the polar extreme one end of, this discussion, right, of losing all those games. Right now, you're sitting at 4-2, where it's been a bit more 50-50, right? You beat UCF tonight, you lose Cincinnati, you had that game against Missouri. So this is kind of more, I guess, the norm for lack of a better term. And the question becomes, through the rest of the season, right? when it's a one-score game against K-State, because it inevitably will be. I do not care what K-State is doing. I do not care if they are completely imploding after the loss to Baylor. That's going to be a close game. I promise you, they are going to get up for it. It may truthfully at this point be the only game that they even care about at this point, considering how their season has gone. But when that's a one-score game, maybe when you go at Arizona later in the season, and that's maybe is a close game against an Arizona team that looks like they might be a little bit better. Obviously, Texas Tech coming up. You're going to play Iowa State. You figure that'll be right. The question is going to become, okay, we've seen sort of now the middle ground of winning and losing these one-score games. If you want to get to the Big 12 title, if you want to reinsert yourself into that conversation, you're going to have to move yourself to the other end of that spectrum of winning more than losing those one-score games. And that will be the ultimate question for Kansas as they sort of head into the second half of the season. Obviously, I don't want to spend too much time on Texas Tech now because we'll talk about them over the course of the week. But, the Texas Tech game is going to be essentially just sort of a measuring stick. Like, okay, just maybe how good are you, right? It's going to be a tough environment against a really, really talented team. And if you show some fight there, just maybe don't get blown out, then you can build off of that heading into the bye week and heading into K-State. But the rest of those games are after Texas Tech. Again, to me, it will come down to, okay, are you in a situation where maybe last year you go 1-4 in those games? Maybe you're in a situation where it's 2-3, 3-2, or can you elevate and say, okay, you're able to go 4-1 versus 3-2 in those games. And maybe that's when you get back in the conversation of possibly heading to the Big 12 title, because I truthfully do believe it's still on the table, right? Like, you only have one loss in the conference. Again, in the Big 12, it's so chaotic from week to week. Like, it's far from out of the conversation. I mean, you mentioned it with Iowa State. They've lost their top two corners to injury for the rest of the season. So I think that certainly negatively affected them today against Cincinnati, and we'll see what it does to them over the course of the rest of the year. You look at Baylor barely beating K-State. Who knows with them? TCU was in a dogfight with Colorado. They ended up winning by 14, though. But even still, the one team I will say that I don't even know if we've mentioned them once this season, and maybe I feel bad for not doing so, is BYU the second best team in the conference, Kevin? Is BYU the team nobody's talking about?
After having watched BYU, I do not believe that to be the case, but it is the Big 12. So you never know. I mean, you really don't know. So we said heading into the season, if you want to take it totally literally, both of us picked KU to go 8-4. We picked KU to go 8-4 in different ways, but we both picked KU to get to 8-4. Right now, you're on pace for 8-4, and I think you look at Lance Leipold's teams traditionally tend to get better over the course of the season. You saw that last year. And I think the other thing, Nick, is, look, there's a dangerous thing about 18 to 22-year-olds who have confidence. And if Kansas is able to build some confidence, if that comes from the defense, from the way that this game ended, you could see Kansas continue to take a leap and maybe win some of those close games and put themselves into those situations. And so, if you go into the second half of the season and you find a way to beat an Oklahoma State team that already fired their coach, if you find a way to beat K-State, you find a way to beat Arizona, you find a way to beat like an Iowa State with their top two corners out for the season, I really do think that you're in a position to potentially make a run. And I think the other thing, Nick, is that we've talked about is Kansas is so good coming off of bye weeks, and Kansas still has 2 bye weeks left in the final 6 games. And so I think there's a little bit of a chance for you to start getting a little bit healthier, for guys to start coming back that you haven't had access to. And I also think that with that bye week being before K-State, being before Iowa State, that gives you a little bit better chance to maybe win those games.
Yeah, I absolutely was going to mention what you just said, which is you've talked about it. KU has been great off of bye week as Lance Leipold, and because of the week 0 game, you have 2 more bye weeks left to work with over the course of the rest of the season, which is, I think, not insignificant. And in fact, I think it's very significant because, as you just mentioned, one comes before K-State and one comes before Iowa State. And if those bye weeks allow you to be in a better position to win both of those games, now you're talking about, okay, take care of business against Oklahoma State, go and beat Arizona, going on the road and win against Arizona. Now all of a sudden you're looking at a situation where you're back in that conversation, and it comes down to, hey, Maybe it's a game against Utah at the booth, on Black Friday that could determine potentially going to the Big 12 title game. Because to me, it's not even necessarily about what your record is. It's going to be, I think it'll probably end up coming down to like the right combination of wins and losses to where you get into that tiebreaker discussion, which by the way, I wouldn't even, I mean, unless you just want to get your brain into a complete pretzel, I wouldn't even really bother looking at the tiebreaker scenarios that the Big 12 has, because it gets so convoluted. Like I just wouldn't even worry. It's crazy. But the point being, depending on the right combination of wins and losses, that could benefit you really, if it ends up coming down to that scenario.
Yeah, you could wind up with 35 teams, with tiebreakers with the way that this thing is playing out. And, Joseph Loomis asking, I have no clue who's second best, Cincy, BYU, or Arizona State. It honestly probably depends more on the schedules than anything else, and who you get it and when you get them, because, Arizona State probably would be the second most talented, I would say. But at the same time, since he can win a shootout against anybody, and Brandon Sorsby is playing as good a quarterback as anybody in the country right now, which gives them a chance. I don't think BYU is quite up there. I think BYU is sort of that half step down. Baylor pretty much tried to spike itself in its game against K-State today. Both of those teams were like, no, I don't want to win. You have it. Oh, no, not me. You guys can take the win. And so the way that game ended was crazy. Did you watch the end of that, Nick?
Yeah, it was very chaotic. As you said, it felt like both coaches were just trying to bungle one way or another at the end of the game. And ultimately it comes down to a bizarre situation where K-State could have ran another play. They spike it. They had a timeout. Then they call the timeout without running another play. And it's like, okay, well, what? Then you end up kicking a 56-yard field goal and it gets blocked. Yeah, it was a chaotic game. But again, just to reiterate, I don't care what K-State's record is. I don't care how well or how bad they're playing. They will get up for that game against KU.
Yeah, it's going to be a really tough game. You're not going to.
That's going to be.
I do not believe that even if Kansas is significantly better than Kansas State, I do not believe that Kansas is just going to cruise in that game. You'd love to be wrong, obviously, but I really think that it's going to be a tough game. One interesting thing, I see Bad Hombre, saying you're not going to win that. But the one thing I will say, in addition to everything else, Kansas, one, hasn't been far off, but two, the other part about it that not a lot of people are talking about, but some people on Pay Heed have been talking about, Kansas has been very good coming off of bye weeks. You know who has been really bad coming off of bye weeks over the last 3 or 4 years? Kansas State has been very bad coming off of bye weeks and has some pretty questionable losses in there. And so you have one program where maybe you would elevate where they're at a little bit based on coming off of the bye week. I think Kansas is 5-0 in its last 5 games off of bye weeks. 3 wins are over ranked teams. The other 2, they covered by a whole heck of a lot, won by an average of 30 points. And then you have K-State that's, I don't remember the exact number, Nick. We've talked about it on the show, but it's something like 1-3. Like it's K-State has traditionally struggled under Kleiman here recently, at least, coming off of bye weeks. And so it would not surprise me if this is the year.
Yeah, I certainly hope it's the year. And in a lot of ways, it feels like it almost needs to be the year, to be honest with you. Like, obviously we'll have plenty of time to talk about that game when as we get closer to it. But yes, like for many different reasons, it feels like it has to be this year. It just has to. And if it's not, then I don't know. We may need a rapture for it to actually. I don't know. It has to be. But yeah, we'll have plenty of time to get into that game anymore. Any more final thoughts here from tonight's game, Kevin, before we wrap up the show?
No, I mean, the offense did just enough in the first half. It wasn't perfect to stick around when the defense was not playing well. And in the second half, the defense was generally terrific and was really great against the run. And the offense kind of did just enough. And so it wasn't one that you're necessarily going to write home about it and, tell your grandkids about, like, I remember where I was when Kansas went into the bounce house and left with a win.
But the stupid bounce house.
But the thing is, Nick, when your grandparents or when your grandkids bring up a Wikipedia page, if that's still a thing, on the 2025 Jayhawks, it will say that Kansas beat UCF and got that win in the win column, and that's the most important thing.
Yep. I will say this. I started the show with this. I'll end it with this. The best part of winning ugly is winning. And it got a little ugly towards the end. It got a little scary, but Kansas ultimately gets the win. And listen, I'm not going to apologize for getting a road win in the Big 12. I don't care who the opponent is. I'm not apologizing for it. You shouldn't either. Kansas wins tonight. The Jayhawks are 4-2. They've got Texas Tech coming up on the road. We'll be talking about that later on this week. Once again, huge shout out to everyone that joined us tonight. Big thank you to all of you. Special shout out to Joseph. Great show, y'all. Thank you so much. Jackson as well in the chat. Really appreciate all of you guys joining us tonight. And we hope that you'll join us again for future post-game shows as well. We're going to be live after every KU football game this season, including next Saturday night after KU plays against Texas Tech. And the best way to know when we are live is to hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to the channel, and you'll be notified when we go live. And also, you can check out all of our other videos as well. So really appreciate those of you that have joined us tonight. Big shout out to everybody in the chat here. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Listen, we would not be here without you wonderful Jayhawk fans. So enjoy this win. And we'll try to do it again next week against Texas Tech. Until next time, he's Kevin Flaherty. I'm Nick Springer. We'll talk to you again soon. See ya.